Coming up next on CHGO Blackhawks, we are joined by Hawks GM Kyle Davidson. Stick around. Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Hope you're having a great day. I'm Jay Zawaski with Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. In a moment, we'll be joined by Blackhawks GM Kyle Davidson, but we're not going to bring him on until you hit the like and subscribe buttons on YouTube. So do that. Hit those for us. And
you have to unlock the interview.
That's right. You have to unlock the interview. Be sure to check us out on all the fast channels, too, on your Rokus, on your Xfinities, on your Samsung TVs. We're available there as well. All right, let's just get right to it. You've hit enough like buttons. We appreciate it. Kyle Davidson is joining us from Edmonton. He's there for the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, doing some scouting, doing some hockey watching. Kyle, thanks for being with us, man. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, busy off season. You got a lot accomplished, checked a lot of boxes. At this point, here we are August 5th, a little more than a month from the start of training camp. Do you feel like your work here is done this offseason? I know you're always sort of looking, there's always opportunities to improve, but at this point, are you pretty comfortable with what you've got?
Yeah, I think we're probably, pretty set with our group here moving into September and into training camp. Of course, you're always talking, but there's nothing out there that's that we're either pursuing or that is out there to be pursued from my understanding right now. But I think we got a lot accomplished, a lot of work done that we're really happy with, and yeah, certainly it feels like this is the group that will enter camp together.
Well, I think one of the main concerns among most of the fan base, of course, is how Connor's doing right now. Do we have any kind of update or any kind of timetable when he might be able to start skating at least again?
I don't have anything on that end. I think we're probably coming up to the point where he's going to be entering some, checkups and seeing some people to maybe give us a better sense of that. It probably is still too early to give us a sense of when, the next progression of this whole process is. But by all accounts, it's going very, very well. He's, as you'd expect, he is attacking rehab the way he would attack, his off season if he were fully healthy. And so he's doing everything humanly possible to prepare himself for, to, I'm sure, beat the timeline that has been put out there. But no real update. I don't even know if we'll have one until we get to camp, to be honest. So just kind of leaving him to his PT and everything else that he's doing to make sure he stays on track. So, but no, all is positive and going the right way.
That's good news. I know we all, and I'm sure yourself and all of Blackhawks fans, were kind of clutching the chest when you see the injury, you see the video, you hear the reports and all that, and but good to hear that Connor's on a good path as you'd expect him to be. Good news this offseason was the re-edition rather of Patrick Kane, signing him in free agency. And that's I think been something that a lot of people have clamored for, is him coming back to Chicago for basically since he was traded. What was the process of figuring out that was the move that you wanted to go through from an organizational standpoint? At what point did you feel like the call from Danny Wirtz was part of the pitch, and the timeline between making that initial contact in July 1st to actually signing him? Like, what was that whole process like from your standpoint?
Yeah, you start to consider these things, and you're always evaluating your group where they're at. hockey wise, maturity wise, as they grow. Like I'm speaking about the younger players, they grow into themselves at the NHL level, and certainly, we didn't think about Kaner necessarily this early, but we felt coming out of last training camp that our young players just had their feet under them much more. Certainly, Connor, came back a different player, but also just an ease about him and a confidence about him that was newly, not, I don't want to say newly discovered, but that he was displaying. And so you go through a full season, and as the group comes together and there's a young nucleus there, and you see them kind of starting to really build something special and grow within their chemistry and the locker room building together. After the season, we felt that if it was possible and if he got to free agency, this was something that we wanted to pursue, because initially at the outset we wanted those players to establish themselves, and I think you saw when it eventually signed Patrick, there's a lot of gravity to his presence, and there's huge value in that. There's also some elements that if the players aren't prepared, there could be a little bit of they're watching him a little too much, maybe, and they haven't figured out what works for them and gotten comfortable in their own skin. And so I think we've reached that point. Now we bring him in, and everything that he has accomplished, everything that he brings, everything that he can impart is additive, and it's extremely positive. And so we decided, first of all, you want to go down the road, because without 100% confidence across the board, whether it's management and coaching staff, you don't want to, especially with someone of Patrick's stature and importance to the city and the organization, you don't want to go in, just dip your toe in. You don't want to be like, oh, management's in, coaches aren't, or coaches are in, management. Everyone's got to be aligned. Like, this has to be right, because there's way too much respect for the player to not be 100% committed to why it would work. Can it work? We all just check every box, and so we did. And then when we're kind of gearing up for the opening of free agency, just felt that this player is he's a club legend. He's an icon in this city and in this sport. I don't think there's a young player out there today that isn't inspired by what Patrick has done in the NHL and in his career. And so through that, I don't think there's anyone more impactful within the organization than our owner. And so felt that was the ultimate respect, the ultimate show of commitment, to have Danny be the one that reach out initially and kind of express that, not necessarily from a hockey standpoint initially, like I was, myself and Blash were able to do that, but just the commitment organizationally that, this is something that we believe in wholeheartedly, and why we want to, make this happen. And so it was a great, I think, first step. And then, Blash and I have our conversations, and a couple, not just one, we had a couple with Patrick, and then at some point there's nothing left to be said. And it's just up to, him to come to the conclusion that, he wants to sign with Team X. And, I always made myself available if there were any questions he had, if he had anything he wanted to talk about. I was just little things like proactive about kind of keeping him posted on where Connor's injury was at and what his situation was, and just making sure he had all the information necessary to make the best decision for himself. Because in the end, like if it was us or another team, I wanted him to be able to make that decision without or with all the information, not just with the information I wanted them to have. And so it was making sure that he had everything at his disposal to make the best decision for him and his family. And then whatever, I can't remember the date, but I remember where I was when found out that he was going to come back to Chicago and set the wheels in motion, make it happen.
We learned from Chris Chelios that it was down to Chicago and Buffalo. I don't know if you had heard that, but
I definitely heard that. Yes.
Yeah. You know, going from July 1 to, like 2 weeks later when he signs, had he gone with another team, was there a kind of contingency plan for still adding a player like Patrick had he not signed with Chicago?
Yeah, you're always kind of talking, and you have your different checklist and backup plans, and if things don't go your way, that's like anything. You always have that's why you have meetings. That's why you prepare. You have your lists, and you kind of set the dominoes in motion. And if the first one doesn't fall the way you want, then you hit the other one, right? And so we were prepared should that not have gone our direction. But thankfully we didn't have to go down that road, and we got option A. So we're really excited about that.
Do you want to tell us who it was?
Who the other options were? Yeah, let me get right to that.
You mentioned, I was listening to you on the 100% Hockey podcast yesterday, and you mentioned how you talked to Connor about the idea of bringing Patrick Kane in, said he almost jumped through the phone. He was so excited about it, but you sort of alluded to the fact that you do involve him in sort of a lot of the things you have. I understand the reason why, obviously face of the franchise now, face of the franchise in the future, but how involved is Connor on hey, I'm going to sign Ian Cole. What do you think? Is that this? Do you run everything by him, or how involved is he in the process of these things?
No, not everything. And that's not for any other reason than he's got a job to do too, and I've got a job, and I think we trust each other to do what we're tasked to accomplish. And so no, but you certainly have. I think it's important to have those conversations, especially with your best players, your current and future leaders. You want their input. It's good information. It's just like anyone else at your disposal. You want those opinions that are informed, that are important to the path you're going down. Now and he's fully understanding that. That doesn't mean that we agree or I act on everything he said or any opinion that I get. It's just, again, it's information that goes into the decision-making process that is up to me to weight accordingly. But having said that, I truly believe we see the game and we see our team and players very similarly, and so it feels good to be marching in the same direction on that. But there are certain things that you want his input in, and again, if he said, "Oh no, I don't think that's a good idea," I probably would have attempted to just give him the reason why we're going to do this and why I think it's best. And but that certainly wasn't the case. And but again, generally, and on just thoughts around the league and players, I like talking hockey. He likes talking hockey. Obviously, we we don't get too in depth on our team. I don't think that's necessarily healthy to get his take on teammates. I think that's a little it's probably a line you don't want to cross, and that's for myself to make evaluations on, and our management group and coaches. But certainly different ideas and opportunities are certainly things that I want to involve him on, because I value his opinion, and he's an important, obviously an important player, but an important person in our organization.
Well, speaking of Connor, you got the big contract extension done this summer, and that turned into a little bit of angst amongst the fan base, and it gave us a lot to talk about for those weeks we had nothing else to talk about. Will he, won't he, what will it be? We kind of talked to our buddy Mark Bernard a couple of weeks ago about what goes into the process of contract negotiations, and without having to give out any kind of specifics, but when you have two sides that are going to come to a term and it doesn't happen right away, what are some of the things that go into those negotiations, and just to how it takes a little longer than I think some people would think that it should?
Honestly, they're all so different and unique, and certainly the big ones, like with Connor's contract, you just want to take your time and you talk things out, and you probably try and over communicate a little bit with their representatives and just make sure that everyone's kind of turning over every stone to make sure we're thinking of everything and the reasons why or why not to, go down different paths or avenues. And so it's completely natural. I do understand, and I'm not only oblivious to, but immune to the anxiety of a contract negotiation dragging out, certainly in the environment we just went through. There's there's a reality and merit to that, and those feelings of angst. And so, but having said that, I never truly got the feeling that there was anything to be worried about. It was just these things run their course. They take their time. You want to make sure every box is being checked. They're seemingly not complicated, but they are. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of commitment. Now, from the outside looking in, and from our perspective too, it's not the hardest thing to commit to. Like, you believe in the player wholeheartedly, but they're trying to do their job for the player. We're trying to do our job for the organization. And so you just have to, go through the process, and you do meet at some point, all the while keeping it respectful, cordial, and positive, and making sure that, you're bringing fact to the table, and just presenting everything that's necessary from your standpoint. And so, yeah, of course, like, it would have been nice to get it done a year ahead of time or before an offer sheet got signed, and but that wasn't the way it went, and it's totally fine. It worked out, I think, the way it was all supposed to work out. And so I was really pleased with where we ended up in the end. We've got a young superstar that is 100% committed to what we're doing, and we should all be very excited about that.
Connor's got the 5-year deal now. Do you look at that as a potential window of, we need to get this to as high of a ceiling as we can with the organization in that 5 years? Because I feel like we're seeing a new age of player empowerment in the NHL, and more often than not, players are going to start, or have started to, kind of dictate a little bit more of where they go individually. Do you view it that way, or is it more than just how long Connor is under contract of trying to get the organization to that Stanley Cup contender status?
Yeah, I don't view that as any type of timeline. I certainly don't look at 5 years out as like something that we've got to be at a certain point. Like, I just hope that we're there before that, right? And we're ascending up and showing very, very meaningful progress. We're a very impactful team by that point. Certainly, my timeline has always been to go as fast as responsibly possible. Just given what we're doing, right? It's again, whether people love it or not, we're doing this on the backs of the development of young players. I don't necessarily believe, certainly the way players hold, or teams hold on to their players, that it was going to be something that we could acquire our way into Stanley Cup contention. We had to set a base, a foundation, and those players were going to set, the ceiling for us. And then we would certainly attempt to make meaningful additions around those players when possible. And so, we've likely entered into this phase where we are in that addition spot, as evidenced through the Bowen Byram ad. Kane are coming back. So those are certainly things that we have done. We will look to do moving forward. We've got, again, I know I'm the manager of this team, and it's sort of my job to believe in this group. But you look at what we've got up front, you look at what we've got in the back end and in the net. I'm really, really excited about where we're going. I I know where we finished last year, but I just believe that these players moving forward are going to impact us in a very meaningful way. I think we're on a great trajectory. We're headed in the right direction. And then we've got assets to add as needed. And we're obviously, we'll be aggressive in doing that if something is there for us to acquire. And so, yeah, no, it's not necessarily a timeline, those 5 years, but that's just how long his contract lasts. I expect, my intention is, whether it was a 5 year, an 8 year, or a 2 year, like, this guy's going to be here for the rest of his career. And so, the term, essentially, it's not irrelevant, but with respect to how long he's going to be with the Blackhawks, it was not necessarily, we got to get him signed up for as long as we can because that's all we're going to see from him. No, like, it's, 5 year deals are what, 19 and 88 both signed and obviously re-upped. And so it's, that's what we would expect here with this player. But no, the 5 years isn't necessarily the window. That's just the time he's got under this contract.
Well, you mentioned Bowen Byram, and you gave up a ton to get him. You paid him a ton of money. You took some heat from the national media and local people a little bit about the deal. What makes you believe that Bowen Byram is the $12.5 million number one defenseman you're paying him to be, despite the fact that he hasn't really, I know he hasn't had the opportunity yet, but he hasn't shown that he can be that guy yet. What makes you believe so firmly in Byram?
Yeah, no, I just believe in his skill set, his capabilities, his belief in himself, but not a false belief that he is that guy, which I believe is a major component to stepping into that role and succeeding in that role is having that confidence that you are the guy for the job, and he's got that, but he's got the talent to go along with it. And we believe that, at 25 years old, he's just fairly recently 25. He is capable of doing that. He is capable of stepping in and being that number one defenseman and eat huge minutes for us moving forward. And then from the financial standpoint, like, we've seen where contracts have sort of gone this summer. And then you go out a year, and if you're a UFA at 26 years old with the potential and the talent he has, I would be hard pressed to find a team that doesn't want to try and jump on that and sign him. So there's going to be a ton, if you were to get there's going to be a ton of interest, probably a huge bidding war, and who knows where that number goes. And so, sometimes you got to commit, and you got to jump on a player that you love and show the value that you have in them. And that's what we did. I did the deal and haven't thought twice about it since. And we're a way better team and organization with Bowen Byram than without him.
Was there any part of you in the process of getting the deal done with Byram that thought back to 2019 and thought, I could have just had this guy at number 3?
No, the thing about that is when you make, well, it is true we could have had him at number 3, but like when we make decisions at the draft table, everyone gives their input, everyone provides an opinion, and then there's a decision that's made, and everyone gets behind that decision. And we took Kirby at the time, and I don't think anyone should be or should look back and say, you know what, on second thought, we should have gone, you know what, that was a decision that's made. And Kirby's a good player. We all supported it. I supported it as well. And I wasn't super involved in the draft at that time, but you support the decision that's arrived at. And that's the decision that Stan and Mark Kelly made, and they had I thought a pretty good track record there to receive that respect and that decision making power at that time. And so I was on board, and I think everyone else was too. But you know what, there's good players that go at the top of the draft, and you pick what's best with the information you have at the time. We do that now, and everyone gets on board, and you move forward, and then you operate from there. And so, no, I don't think about if we should have had him or could have had him or whatever. That's the way the NHL goes, and it's you can't have everyone that you love in the draft. Otherwise, you need 4 of the top 5 draft picks every year.
Another young defenseman that's got a lot of faith put in him is Artyom Levshunov, and we learned a lot from his recent strawberry shortcake meeting with Scott Powers about. We got a lot of really good insight though about how much he's actually gone through these last few years, and I don't think people take that into account when they're watching such a young kid in his career, and all that other stuff factors into it. But did you have what was your level of concern when we saw him struggle at times last year? And did any of that go into the Bowen Byram deal, or were those just completely independent of each other, and you were looking to say, hey, we've got this great young defenseman and we can have Bowen Byram? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I believe it was much more of an and than like trying to remedy anything. Again, I think that piece that Scott had was very insightful. These are things that we certainly took into account and understood in our, not only in our evaluation, but in how we handled Artie and how we operated with him within our organization and evaluated him in the draft. Everyone comes from different paths and backgrounds, and you have to take that into account. And you also have to give them, again, you have to hold players to account and hold them to a standard. But in some cases, you do have to give them some grace as well in terms of if they're getting used to a new environment or used to a new country or culture. Sometimes that hits people harder, and it's a bigger hurdle or tougher transition than others. It's his path is certainly far different than say a player that is drafted out of the Toronto area, or Connor coming out of Vancouver, who's sort of lived a hockey life all of his hockey existence, right? Like it's always been hockey, and I'm sure his days were geared towards that. And Artie, just as you learned, like he's got a much different path, and so you have to be patient in that. And then from a hockey standpoint, defensemen take longer. They just do. We know this. There are a few very rare exceptions that come along, but these guys take time. As long as they have the talent, which we believe he does, that they're willing to put in the work, which we know he is, then you're willing to give them that time, because you feel good about them reaching their potential. And so you just have to make sure you're putting them in situations to succeed both on and off the ice, and understand where they're coming from when when things aren't exactly going their way. And so it's just about being flexible and fluid with those situations, and knowing that every player is different.
So before the Patrick Kane deal was finalized, you had expressed your confidence in Roman Kantserov's ability to come in here and be like a day one top 6 contributor. Kind of piggybacking on what you said about Levshunov, adjusting to a new country, to a new league. Is it just the fact that Kantserov's a forward that maybe you don't, project those sort of struggles for him, or is it a personality thing, or do you think that will be something that he'll have to overcome a little bit?
Well, Roman is entering the league older. He's entering the league older. He's played with men in a men's league. There's just different, requirements and skill set that's required with, existing in a locker room with professionals for the number of years that Roman has. I'm sure there's things like media that he's had to contemplate and handle, and then I think he's probably more, he's older, so he's further along in his comfort in who he is and his personality and all those things that come up with growing into into a professional. And so, you know, again, he's also forward is likely an easier entry point from a playing standpoint. But, you know, I just think that the skill set that Roman possesses is one that will be much, you know, much more, I don't want to say easily transferable or easily, you know, integrated into the NHL, but, you know, he does just possess those things that feel like they're pretty ready to go early on. And so, you know, I have a lot of confidence that he's going to come in and be a contributor right away.
So you stated this offseason that you believe that like playoffs this year, at least being close to a playoff spot at the end of the year, should be the expectation. So with that in mind, how do you have an environment where young players are allowed to develop at their own pace while also kind of leveling up the expectations for the team's ultimate success? Like, can those two things happen at the same time?
I believe they can. And again, like we're talking about players that, you know, we can expect, you know, we should reasonably expect a little more than you did in the years prior, right? Like they've gotten some experience. They can use that. They can grow from that. They're a year older. You know, another summer under their belts outside of, you know, but Roman's played, you know, significant number of games. So, you know, there is a schedule that he has under his belt the last couple of years, you know, outside of, you know, likely Anton, he's the one that's never been through an NHL season before. All the other ones have, you know, for the most part, have been through a full NHL season. They've been through the grind, they've seen it. And so, you know, like that's valuable as well. And so it is development, but it's not, you know, first foray into a first NHL camp or first, you know, home opener or anything like that. You know, like a lot of these guys have been there, done that at least once. And so, you know, it's a different level of development, but it's up, you know, up to myself and up to the coaches to uphold and require a standard that's necessary to push for that kind of place in the league standing and you know, doing things right every single day to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the situation for success. And, you know, again, like we weren't far off from that last year until we had those injuries in December, right? Like we were not far off from that. I can't remember exactly what it was because honestly, it doesn't really matter. That's, you know, you go through the rest of the year and it doesn't work out the way that you hope. But until that point, I think we were, you know, mid to high 80s upon projected points, and LA made the second wildcard spot at 90. And so like you're within distance, right? You're chasing if you maintain that. Now that doesn't mean that 90 points is going to be the barrier to get in this year. It could be higher, right? It could be lower, but it likely is going to be a little bit higher. And so you just want to you want to be in that conversation, at least put yourself and give yourself the option to keep pushing, to keep charging, and to have something to chase certainly when the calendar flips, but hopefully later than that. And so, you know, it's about putting yourself in a position and giving these guys the opportunity to chase something down. And I, you know, hearing from the players that exits last year, that was certainly their intention and their belief that they have the capability and the talent to do that. And I don't think it's going to be any different when they arrive here in September.
For the record, December 12th, the day Kane was injured, or the day Bedard was injured, you were 1 point out of a playoff spot. So
not that anyone's counting.
We looked at it Monday.
Right.
Real quick, before we did ask our diehards to submit a question, we're going to read one to you. Any update on new contracts for Korchinski or Del Mastro?
No updates there. Obviously, we had some, you know, not that they were backburnered to any extent, but you know, we had some big rocks to try and move there in the first part of the offseason. So we'll get down to work and continue chatting with them here moving forward. So yeah, nothing new though.
And do you expect both of those to get done? You expect both of them to be part of the org?
Oh yes, yeah. No, I don't see any. Shouldn't be any issue getting those two guys done.
Okay. So yeah, we did ask a lot of our diehards for questions. We got a bunch of them. I know you're crunched on time. I feel like we answered a few of them in a roundabout way, but did want to get to this one from Sprout because I think it's something that we see. I'm sure you've seen, like the perception of this rebuild and basically your time as GM, there's been criticism from people nationally, from people out of town, from people in town, from people sitting at this table. Like, how do you kind of handle the perception of the rebuild, how the process has gone versus like the reality of like being the manager of the team going through that rebuild? The question here from our Diehard Sprout asks that. It says, do you ever question yourself or the team and the choices you've made kind of collectively down the road?
You always, I don't say question in like a second guessing way. You try and refine things, you try and get better all the time, certainly in your decision-making process. And, whether that's trades, contracts, drafting, whatever it is, you always try and get better. And so it's a necessary, measure to ask questions and to probe, where we could have been better, because we just need to keep evolving. We need to keep getting better and better at the information we gather, better at the information we utilize. And so that's something that's always happening. I wouldn't say you're second guessing yourself, but you just, I have always wanted people with growth mindset around me. I want players that have a love of improving. And so you've got to, take that on yourself as well. And so you're always trying to get better. In terms of like what people may think or say, I honestly, I don't try and concern myself with that. And to be honest, I believe that the negative and positive are equally as detrimental if you fall into reading about that. Because in the end, like if you're reading all the negative, then you're going to try and do something to change that and to get away from that, which, I believe that we're on the right path, but I also can't, go online, read an article, and then, hey, like good idea can come from anywhere, but I don't think changing, putting the train on a different track is the thing that you should be doing, every time you hear a negative comment or someone, not liking something you did. And then equally, if you read things that are positive, you don't want to be chasing that. I don't want when I'm going into an off season or a trade deadline or something to be like, what'll get me some good pub here, like that. I don't think that's healthy either. And so I try and just block it all out. I do think to some extent it's my job to understand what's out there and what's being said, just for general organizational understanding. But I certainly don't internalize that. I don't try and utilize that to alter anything that I'm going to or will do or have done. So it's just about, getting in with the group, getting the information that you trust, you believe in, and doing what's best for the organization and for the team. And that's what we've done, good, bad, or indifferent in people's opinions. And that's what we're going to do moving forward. And so, again, I'm very confident in the direction we're headed. I believe in these players. I believe in the work we've done. We've still got work to do. We've got a big mountain to climb. This is a really hard league to win in. There's a lot of great players in it, great teams, and everyone's trying to win. Everyone's fighting over the same small pool of players that come available if they become available. And so, it's about staying ready and just staying competitive, staying hungry, and that's what we're going to do moving forward. And but having said that, you need to get good talent in your organization, and I believe we've got it. It's youthful, but it's there.
All right, Kyle, you've been super generous with your time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that is Blackhawks GM Kyle Davidson live from Edmonton. Good stuff. All right, we have to hit the break zone. We are super late. Sorry. Back in 2 minutes on CHGO Blackhawks. What if you could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi, and what if you could keep that reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi at the same price for 5 years? That, my friends, is the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together, that finds and fixes problems before you even notice them. It's super intelligent Wi-Fi with a sixth sense, and that means you are streaming the game even when the whole family is online. All your devices working together in perfect harmony for 5 whole years. And the best part, no annual contract, no hidden fees, and you'll get Xfinity's best equipment included. Take it from us. A lot can change in 5 years. Championships are won. Records are broken. Dreams grow bigger, but your Wi-Fi should stay reliable, and the price should stay put. So lock in your price and unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Available on select plans only, and restrictions do apply.
Our friends at Sunnyside Dispensary are here to elevate your baseball season. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free shopping, and they have a crazy selection of over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. So wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. You can stop into the store nearest to you for expert guidance from their staff, and they might point you to the Good News Tea Time Vapes. Tea Time is a lemonade flavor, so it goes well with an Arnold Palmer on the golf course all summer long. And check out Sunnyside's Stash Pass Summer. It's their rewards program that lets you earn rewards simply by visiting and making qualifying purchases. So you can head to their website for only the best under the sun, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases with the code HICHGO at checkout. Sunnyside Dispensary, only the best under the sun, only for those 21 and older or Illinois medical card holders.
All right, we're back on CHGO Blackhawks, and now it's time for Taking the Temp, presented by Four Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. They've been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. Boy, I just have so many more. We have a shared Google Doc of the questions we want to ask, and there's probably 15 more on there that we could have asked. Yeah. I could spend 9 hours talking to the GM of the Blackhawks about the process and everything, but we had to get the most important stuff in.
If we ever get a chance to talk to him more candidly, I do want to get to some more of the diehard questions because they're creative.
Our diehards are a lot of great questions.
Good questions. As MCR says in the chat, we did not ask about John Mustard, future Hall of Famer, but we will.
We will
someday.
Get to
it. I mean, what's to ask about? We all know he's going to be the greatest player in the history, the greatest player named after a hot dog topping to ever play in the NHL.
You're forgetting about Cam Celery Salt. That guy was great.
Yeah. Mustard is way better than celery salt.
Wrong. Okay. Big takeaway there. Taking the temp from that interview was to me. It's just like for me the fact that he acknowledged if Kane didn't work, we had something else.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the consternation that we have about things that are said, we have to read between the lines of GM speak and remember that what Kyle Davidson says on June 30th of oh, yeah, we're confident with the group we have, because he doesn't know if he's going to be able to get things over the finish line, right? So he has to talk politically, for lack of a better way to put it, and say, yeah, we totally believe that Frondell and Kantserov can be top 6 regular contributors. But he basically said, yeah, if Kane didn't work out, we had plan B to Patrick Kane and plan C and plan D. He knew that it would be irresponsible to go into the season looking at Roman Kantserov and Anton Frondell as certain offensive contributors, and he had a plan to handle it otherwise. So I'm not pointing a finger at anyone. I'm pointing a thumb at myself of remember that these guys are not as dumb as we imagine them to be. They have you know what I mean? I just think we're how could you say that? There's no way this is going to work. They know that too. Mm-hmm. No one knows the Blackhawks better than Kyle Davidson or Norm McIver or Brian Campbell or any of these people making decisions. If we know what they need, they know what they need even more. And it sounds like there was a plan of attack of, all right, Kane is plan A. And he mentioned in the 100% hockey thing, he put a date on it and started talking about it in May. At the combine,
to get
right?
the idea of getting.
The combine was Byram, but he started talking in May about the possibility of Patrick Kane. So that was something they had been hoping for, and I don't want to say counting on, but that was okay. Kane is the focus. If that doesn't work, then we move on to maybe it was Tarasenko. Maybe it was somebody. Maybe it was an offer sheet for somebody. Who knows?
I am fascinated. And we'll probably never know, but I am fascinated at what plan B was, because it went all the way till the 3rd week of July to get Kane signed. Yeah. And if you get to that point and then he goes, I'm going to the Sabres, you're like, oh, our plan B might have probably signed 2 weeks ago.
gone.
Yeah,
Patrick
you know.
Laine,
Yeah,
what are you
right.
doing,
Anthony
pal?
Mantha,
Yeah.
let's overpay for you. Like, yeah, I find that fascinating. But as Kyle said, like,
I tried. I said, tell us who it is, and he
thankfully
went
they
for it.
didn't need to worry about Plan B.
I bet
Plan A
you,
worked.
like 3 years from now, we can get that off the record.
Maybe.
I wondered if he tuned into our July 1st show when we were kind of winding down, and you know, Jay was upset Mason Marchment went to the Sharks, and we were kind of like, where's that winger? And if he was kind of just sitting there going, guys,
of course he was.
Relax.
I'm sure he was. Yeah.
Just wait.
But I mean,
and like, how tough is him to go through that, like, July 1st press conference after the trade deadline and just be like, yeah, well, we're still working. Like, and nobody wants to hear that.
Well, he always says,
but
we're always looking to improve. We're never done working. Today he was like, yeah, we're pretty much done.
Yeah.
And he was like, there's really nothing even out there.
Get your house cleaning done with Delmashko and Korchinski.
We're
and
good.
call
I'm
it an
already out
off-season.
here watching 17-year-olds play hockey.
Right.
I've moved on. Like, I'm already focusing on the 2026, 2028 draft.
But he can't see, for a GM, he can't say like, yeah, I'm not done. We're not done. Like, just because it's July 1st it's 4 p.m. on July 1st
Right.
doesn't mean our off season's over. Like, but he can't say that, because if things work out and things don't get over the finish line, people are going to say,
he's not going to say we made an offer for.
right. We've got several pending offers on the table.
We made an offer for Patrick Kane. You know,
that'd be cool.
That'd be great if he did.
you know, he had to wait for Chris Chelios to let that cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
2
All
weeks
right.
later.
We got to hit the break zone again. That was Taking the Temp, presented by Four Seasons. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. Because of the fast channel, we have to take a break by right now, but that's it. We'll do some overtime today for sure. Stick around. Whether it's on the field or in your financial life, the best teams win by delivering excellence at every level. At Old National Bank, they believe every play matters. From everyday checking to long-term planning and commercial banking, their team is there to help build momentum and help you move the ball forward. It all starts with a plan tailored for you by professionals you trust. From simple tasks to bigger financial moments, you can count on Old National to coordinate your needs with steady, knowledgeable guidance that brings clarity and confidence to every step. It's a partnership designed to help you feel supported, not just today, but well into the future. So whether you're celebrating one of life's little wins, rebuilding after a tough loss, or gearing up for whatever comes next, Old National has your back with tools, insights, and an expert crew that's always in your corner. My family uses Old National Bank. Yours should too. Old National Bank, member FDIC, where relationships and results matter.
You know that moment, the one you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away. We've all been there. I have been there too. My sunglasses fell right off the collar of my shirt as I was tying off a boat, and bloop, right down to the
I was
bottom
going to say bloop.
of Fox Lake.
Look at that.
Well, bloop. There they go.
Chemistry.
But then I got Shady Rays, and they changed my sunglasses game. They are made for real life. They are seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. Best part is, if you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair with no guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on a boat, wherever you need to wear your sunglasses. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com. Use our code CHGO50 for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That is the code CHGO50.
All right, we're back. Thank you for hitting the like button. Keep it coming. Hit that subscribe button. We will not do much overtime today, though, because the Bulls are on at 4:30.
Yeah, to check the schedule.
We got to
during the
make
break.
room.
Yes, because the Cubs post game, as they sweep the crummy-ass Los Angeles Dodgers
Greg,
right out of town.
the game is not over. Please shut up.
It's over. Dodgers are done.
All right.
Done. Not even making the playoffs.
Greg has stuck a fork in the LA Dodgers.
They're done. Bums. Overrated bums.
All right. DJ Schnell with his daily super chat. We do appreciate it, DJ. Thank you. Says, is that Greg on a Wednesday? Hell yeah. Yes, it is.
Funny behind the curtain moment. That was in Kyle's rider. The only reason he would only come on if I was here to ask him softball questions, and so we got him on.
We did. I hope our balls were soft enough. Lucas Reichel, $10, says, need that Bedard and Grizzlick duo back. When do we think that contract will be announced? That'll be March 32nd.
The day after never. I am kind of surprised Grizzlick is still kind of unsigned. He was fine.
He was fine.
last
You
year.
know what the Hawks need is another left defenseman.
Sure.
Another PTO.
Complete the set. I mean,
47 left defensemen.
Matt Grizzlick was a very serviceable guy, but he was on a PTO on a team that finished in the bottom 3. Had 12 points.
He was fine.
He did exactly
what you wanted him
I'm
to
just
do.
saying, I'm not surprised.
No,
that season didn't land. If his career best season before signing with the Hawks lands him a PTO that then gets him a one-year contract.
Well, I was surprised about that.
What happens this past season doesn't help him get an NHL job. Now, I liked Matt Grizzlick. I'm not super surprised that he's still available.
I think the Ian Cole signing probably accomplishes the same thing defensively, but you get a lot more physical.
Much bigger than Matt Grizzlick.
Bigger and stronger.
Yeah, you got 2 tickets to the gun show.
Yeah. And I would see that's the other thing. We didn't get the chance to ask about Cole Smith or Ian Cole or any of these smaller moves. Jordan
Cole.
Greenway,
Coleslaw.
Look, to me, I think he knows how big of an offseason this is for him, and the fact that he is not backing off the playoff conversation. He could very easily say right now, that was our vision, but to be without Connor for 2 months is really putting us in a tough spot. So, maybe that's unrealistic, but no, he's leaned into it. He says the players are in it.
That the expectation is the playoffs until you actually get there.
Yeah.
Or get fired.
And I like too the other thing he said that got my attention was you can't get over carried away with the negative talk or the positive talk. You have to just sort of stay in the middle, which for me it would be very, very difficult.
You need that out of someone who's running a professional sports team to not get too high, not get too low.
I think that's
why I'm not a GM.
I think that's one of Norm McIver's biggest roles with that team is a guy who's not only been with this organization for a super long time, but just been around the league for years and years. I think he's kind of guy that's the days where Kyle might need a little boost. He's there to say, hey, don't worry. Or the days where maybe, hey man, let's turn that volume down a little bit. Stop reading
Get off
your own
Twitter.
press clip. I think he's kind of there to kind of be that leveling, and he's got Brian Campbell there too, that he's been good, not only a good friend for a long time, but another well-respected guy that's been around and seen it all, Stanley Cup winner, all that stuff. Yeah. But, I think when you have a guy that you consider one of your good friends there as well, he could probably say things to you that other guys can't get away with, but you take it you take it differently. We're like, oh yeah, all right. If Soupy's telling me to do this, I probably should listen to him. Yeah. So I think that's been one of the very smart, almost underrated aspects of this whole regime is how he surrounded himself with these guys that are really good at what they do and are going to help him. And it's always been like a team effort there. It's not necessarily always just Kyle Davidson walking in and saying, this is what we're doing.
Right.
My way or the highway.
That's the guy
that
he replaced.
Yeah.
So, kind of had that mentality.
Well, and he worked in that environment and probably was like, you know what? If I ever get
he was
chance,
his
I'm not
AGM.
gonna do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I hated working for that type of guy, so I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's so far as saying that maybe he probably didn't hate working for Stan Bowman, but there's things that we've all worked for different managers in our lives, and I'll use Mitch at the Score. Him and we've got almost like a father-son relationship. There are some things he did I disagreed with, but there's also some things that I would, if I was ever to be a manager again, would take from him and borrow. It's not black or white, right? But I do know for a fact, I've been told by people that worked for Stan Bowman that it was, okay, let's all gather in consensus. Here's a consensus. And Stan would say, nope, I want this guy. And that's in that sort of environment.
Yeah.
That sort of sucks because you feel like you're putting in all this work. You've come to a consensus as a scouting group or as a assistant staff or whatever hockey ops you want to say. And then it's the time to do it. Okay, we've all agreed. The move is Bowen Byram and the pick is Kirby Doc. And it's why are we even here? What are we even doing?
Yeah. I mean, and not that Kyle said, I think we should have picked Byram anyways, but he was, he was in the front office role when that goes down. And I mean, I think his point of you get behind the organizational choice because that's what you're supposed to do. Because if you're not all pulling the rope in the same direction, things can become worse. So I thought it was just interesting how he kind of like spun that. But like, yeah, I mean, like it's not uncommon to have, you know, not a unanimous choice when something like whether it's a draft pick or a signing or a trade or something. But you know, and it's a lot like I think being a fan of this team and through the rebuild, like there are lots of people who did not want the team to go through a rebuild that they've gone through, but like now you might be kicking and screaming, still being a fan, complaining about the rebuild, but you've gone that direction. The organization has gone that direction. So if you're not on board with like these young guys coming through and this process of the rebuild, then it's going to make it harder for you to be a fan because you're pushing the rock up the hill by yourself because the organization is going this route. So I think it's an interesting perspective, and I think for Davidson, like having those kinds of people around in the front office, Megan Hunter as well, Mark Eaton, he's a guy like Brian Campbell, like, he's been in the front office and played, and like had like just having all those different perspectives.
Yeah, I mean,
is
he's done a good job
beneficial.
of, you know, a critic of Kyle Davidson on his own would be never played the game, doesn't have experience, so he surrounds himself with
people who have experience and played the game
and guys that played the game.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, right? You want to there's Bill O'Reilly wrote a book about Abraham Lincoln, like something like a cabinet of rivals or whatever, that Abraham Lincoln brought in people that disagree with him on everything to advise them. Like you want that. And that to me is a healthy front office. And again, none of this means that the rebuild's going to work or the Hawks are going to win a cup with Connor Bedard as the captain or whatever it might be. But you just want to see that the process is sound, that the mindset is sound. And I do feel that way about Kyle Davidson. I agree with his approach. I agree with the majority of the moves he's made, not all of them, but the majority of them. I think that the full rebuild was the way to go. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but I think that he's been, from day one, has not strayed from the path. And he said it to us a few minutes ago, like, we can't buy ourselves into the Stanley Cup playoffs. We can't just go sign a bunch of guys and just hope that's a shortcut. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, that's kind of what the Red Wings have tried to do.
You have to organizationally be set up to do that. And when he took over, they weren't.
Right.
They didn't have a good enough team in the NHL, and they didn't have the assets in the prospect system to go and make those big trades and those big additions. So he's played the cards that he was dealt basically when he took over, and the rebuild was the path to go. Other teams have traded and free agent signed their way to contention. Some teams have done that. The Panthers, Golden Knights, like it's happened. But those teams basically said, screw all of our draft picks and assets. We're just buying everything. Right. But they had the draft picks and the assets to say, screw it, we're going to go buy everybody.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what the Dynasty Hawks did too. And you win multiple cups and it's worth it. But trust me, in 5 or 6 years, the Florida Panthers are going to be ass. Like, they're going to have,
might not even be that long.
No players, no prospects, no draft picks.
Vegas is going to be in that situation.
But if you are winning, that's the price you pay, right? But what you need is, and we keep going to Detroit, is like they've not done what they need to do. They were this dominant organization for 20 years of like Eisenman kicking your ass, and Fedorov kicking your ass, and Datsuk and Zetterberg kicking your ass, and then that all dries up. And they just there are reasons for it, right? Like maybe in Detroit they couldn't survive to be a bottom barrel, bottom feeder, awful, tear it down, have nobody sort of a thing.
They did have
the record was bad,
terrible,
but they
record,
never really tore it down.
Right.
The Hawks had faith in their fan base that they would understand and stick around, and that's what you need to do is say, all right, reality is, and this is what Stan Bowman failed to grasp was, I got to be real here. This thing that me and Dale Talon built, it's dead.
And Mike
it's
Smith.
Over. And Mike Smith. And the window is shut. And I need to recognize the window is shut. And I need to make tough decisions. Kyle Davidson comes in and makes really, really tough decisions of walking away from Jonathan Taves and trading Patrick Kane.
And Hagel and
yes.
DeBrincat and making those kinds of, and Kirby Doc, and like making those kinds of moves to reshuffle and recycle this whole thing. Yeah, it's hard to do.
Well, we will see.
He had the approach of and we've talked about this a lot, the difference between building a team and filling out a roster.
Mm-hmm.
He's been trying to build this team from scratch, 2-3 pieces at a time.
Mm-hmm.
He's had his vision of what he envisions his team will look like when they're in contention. Now he's trying to fill in those pieces, where Steve Yzerman in Detroit, you know, he tried just to fill out that roster every year. Let's get David Perron in here. Let's get, you know, Andrew Kopp in here, and then let's just see if it works. And it hasn't. And that's why they're looking for a new GM.
That's right. And they'll get one someday, we think.
Soon.
It's only August. All right, we're going to wrap things up. We will be back tomorrow at 3. It'll be just me and Greg. Mario is off tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Hit that like button on your way out on CHGO Blackhawks.
We all silly like the mayor.